My name is Amaral. I come from Portugal, and I've been doing a lot of my career in testing and in project management. And well, this is a topic that we start to see now more and more, and we believe we're going to see more and more. So junior testers is a kind of skill, a kind of people that we can frame that are going to see have certain set of skills that are different from someone that has been in the industry for quite some time. And you're going to see as well that junior tester, the way we frame it here, is different from a person that comes straight from school. But let's just have a look at some numbers, just to start. So software is growing. Software testing is growing as well. We've seen today some numbers, maybe we've seen the same numbers today as well. So in the world where we live, multiple opportunities and less resources, we see that the discipline that we all are now is definitely growing. We see very big growth numbers, see 10% year over year. We see big numbers like these ones, $60 billion or $80 billion. These are estimates of the size of our market. And the forecast for next years is that it's going to be growth, more growth. And because we're growing, we cannot just have people trained, experienced in all disciplines that we need from one day to the other. So more and more, we're going to see junior testers coming to us. Different studies shows us the same thing, but this is actually something I've seen some days ago that really caught me to surprise. This would be the last thing I'd expect to see. So in the US, this organization indeed did a study on what are the 10 most in-demand jobs. And of course, they focus on the US market, but gives us a pretty good idea of what happens around the world. And we start with things that truck drivers, registered nurses, either we agree or don't, is not relevant. What is important is what we see is number 6, software quality assurance engineers and testers. So there are really there's a big market. There's a lot of companies looking for software testers. And another interesting number regarding this is that we're growing. So if you have a look at the numbers from 2015, we're 7, and now we're 6. So maybe next year or in a few years, we might be in position 1. I'm sure the market will, of course, adapt and adjust, and we've always been able to do that, but we're all in the right market, so there won't be lack of jobs in the next months for sure, or years. Another number that's definitely interesting, in a conference we had a couple of days ago in Portugal, which topic was test of things, we started talking about what are the numbers of test of things, so how many devices that we have. We know we all have phones that are connected. I'm sure everybody has a smartphone nowadays. We hear about cars being connected, big problem today as well regarding security. What we don't know is that they forecast that by 2020, you're going to have 25 billion devices connected. And we're talking about everything. Fridges, we're talking about Internet of Things for agriculture, for sensors. We talk about trash. How much money can you save with sensors in trash cans? There was a city, I think in the US, that reduced the team from 50 people that were grabbing trash every night to 25. So they cut their workforce. Of course, they changed the jobs of these people in half. So there's going to be a lot of change in terms of job market. Many of these people then will come testing. We don't know. So these 3 numbers that we just seen in terms of the jobs where we are, in terms of number of devices, we're going to have new software being built, a lot of data coming up. Big data, security are all areas where we're going to lack resources of testing. And either we want it or not, we're going to have someone doing those tests because we need to test them. And they're going to be most likely junior people that we're going to frame slightly different from we think of someone coming straight from school, as I mentioned earlier. So what's the team? A group of people, I think we all agree. This group of people has a set of skills and they have a goal. So when you think of a team, we think of a group of people, we think of a goal, and we think as well of what do they have to do. So think of me alone, I cannot lift, I don't know, 50 kilos. But with another person, with a team of 2, maybe both together can lift 50 kilos. But none of us can do it alone. So when I have a team, have a goal that has common, and we should all make sure that the team is working together. And when you have junior people, sometimes we forget these things because people are not so much into the team form. They're not doing the same things as they should. So it's important that we keep this information to be sure that we're all together. And we're going to see, moving forward, that there are things that we can do to be sure that we're all together. So teams are more and more volatile as well, because there's new jobs. Within the previous presentation, we just talked about ethics tester. Security is a big topic as well. So there are new jobs coming up, not only in testing, but in a lot of areas. So all the teams are going to become more and more volatile. And they're not just volatile because someone leaves to another job because they're not happy, but as well because companies change very fast. So I might outsource all my development team to a different country. And now, what do I do with all these people? My development team is growing. I outsource because they did not have enough capacity. So maybe some of these developers might come and start to be testers. But they lack some skills. They're not juniors straight from school. They have some knowledge, but they will be testers. So things change. People change, new skills are required as well, faster and faster. So all this is going to make that we have to reframe what is a junior tester. So in the past, we used to talk that a junior tester is someone that comes straight from school, full of energy, usually with the very good, strong technical skills because they've just been learning the last technologies, and we can just ask them to do, and they're going to be there and work 20 hours a day if needed. And this is changing, and the way we're going to frame here what I call the new junior employee is someone that lacks some kind of technical skills, and technical skills in the scope of testing. So pick security. We just seen the Internet of Things, the growth we're going to have. If you look at today's security testers, security engineers, we don't have enough to test all that. So we need to reframe. We need to pick people. We need to train them. So when they come to the testing world, they're going to lack some technical skills. They're going to lack as well eventually some industry skills. Maybe banking software is going to be reduced by whatever reason. And then all these people have to move to a different industry. So what you're going to see is that junior people are people that come to a testing team, but they're going to have some lack of skills. They won't be able to solve all the problems as someone that has been there forever. And this person might be a person that has been 20 years in the industry, could even have been testing, but if you put him testing ethics or security, you have to train. He's going to be young on that kind of job. So further this slide forward, the rest of the presentation, think of a junior person as a person that lacks some skills on the discipline they're going to be involved in terms of testing. So all this as a manager that you have to do, alerts efficient, have to monitor, prioritize, have to plan, phone is always ringing, my mailbox full of emails, and I have 20 junior people. What do? It's new challenges ahead as well for managers, and as well for the junior people, because they have to work with different people, with people that have never worked. Maybe some are demotivated, they don't want to be there. But these are all challenges that we see already nowadays. We're just adding one more level of complexity that has people. And people, as we know, is the most complex piece of the whole equation that we have. So the first thing we're going to talk about is communication. I believe you all seen this before, or a lot of you. And this is how software is built. This is how any project goes. So let's pick the first two pieces: how the customer explained and how the project leader understood. So this is maybe the first gap we have. So when we start and explain something to a junior person, and don't forget this junior person is a person that lacks experiences in the area I'm talking to the person, that has never seen something, and I'm going to explain him how to do a specific process. And it's very normal that this is what we get. I explain A plus B plus C, and I get A plus D minus B. And that's what the person is going to do in my software, or expect to do in my software. So we apply some tricks, of course, and that's we're going to go through these slides. I'm going to apply to talk about certain tricks that we do to make sure that we can reduce this gap, because this reduction is not something you're going to do in a day. It's a reduction that is going to go along the way. And we're talking about one person. Imagine if you have 20. I had projects where I just arrive and I start with an empty room and everything comes. New people, everybody's new. So you have to really to frame and be sure that you go on the right direction for these. So what we do is we make them repeat as much as possible. We use videos. That's actually something quite new, not so used anymore, or not so used in the past so much. So use video, write, talk, but make sure they really understand everything that they have to do. Second thing is motivation. As I mentioned, we're not talking, most of the people that we're talking are not people that come straight from school, that usually are very motivated because it's their first job. They want to show that they can do things. They are young. They don't mind working a lot. So this is a kind of young employee that we get as well as a junior tester. But many of the junior testers we're going to get are people that have been doing something different. And maybe they know the industry, but they don't know how to test. Maybe they know how to test, but they don't know the industry. And maybe they know how to test, they know the industry, but they have to test something different, like security, like ethics, like a developer that is going to be doing test automation. That is somehow some development, but is some testing as well. So what we do, motivate them. Everybody is a CEO of something. And by CEO doesn't mean that they're fully responsible and accountable for everything that they're doing. By CEO means that they have some control responsibility, for example. So you have to control the progress and account to the manager the progress. You're responsible for that. You have to make sure that instant management is well done and check that the instances are well reported whenever needed. So make them all responsible for something. Either they're 20, they're 50, they've done it for the rest of their lives, or they just start doing it. People, as a psychology of a person, really feels more important. And importance is important for them to perform and to be more motivated. The other things we usually do is reward them. And some of the rewards are quite common that we talk about. It is something like you promote them, you increase their salary. These are the regular things we do on a company. What we usually do is implement some kind of short-term rewards. And it starts with a thank you. Thank you is the two most important words I teach my kids is thank you and please. Because they open so many doors and people like them so much. So implement small rewards. Thank you, meals out, a lunch with the boss of your boss. That's something really people like, to know how is the life of the boss of your boss. So look at small things you can do within your team and give them small rewards. Give them every day if you can. But be sure they are as motivated as possible. If they're not with you, if they're juniors, it's already difficult if they're juniors, if they don't know very well what to do. Now, if they're not supporting you and they don't support each other, you won't make your deadlines. The other topic is expectation. So this follows a bit on the communication and motivation. People need to know what has to be ready when. So look at the tester. Many times when you have junior people, they think, okay, I have to go and test. Open the system, do a few clicks, it works, it doesn't work, raise a bug. No, that's not enough. They need to know X test cycles until this day, and they need to have this percentage of progress done. Otherwise, you're going to have a problem. Otherwise, you're not going to get to an end. So make sure that the things that are quantifiable, and here we talk a lot about things that we can quantify. So you have to execute this amount of test cases. You have to have this amount of progress. So these things that are quantifiable, make sure that is clear for them. Things that you can really detail and give a task, a specific task. And we know, and I'm going to touch a lot about Agile here as well today, because we all know we live now in Agile world. Everything changes. Yeah, everything changes. But in Agile, there's structures, there are meetings, there are deadlines. The same thing exists, just they're done differently. So be sure that all your junior people, when they're testing, they really have clear goals that are related with what they have to do. So I think we all read. We all read every day. We all read mails. We all read books, newspapers. We have a lot of information coming to us. And one thing we need to perform our tasks is information. So without knowledge, we won't make it. I might say I have a very motivated team. That's great. They're really keen to go. They communicate very well, explain what has to be done. I know what I have to do. It has to be ready in 3 days, have to be 80% done. Great, but how do I do it? It's the first time I arrive here. I never learned about security. I never learned about telecoms. I don't know how to test. What is test? So all these things have to come together. And testing is a kind of a skill that requires a few sets of knowledge. So you have to be sure they know enough about the business. And even if they're developers, they have to know a bit about the business to do unit tests, if you have the developers doing your unit test. If they are also acceptance testers, they really need to know the business. They have to know how to test. Whatever you start in the beginning of the chain of testing, towards the end of chain of testing. They have to have some technical skills. Very rarely you have an environment that is fully working, no need to touch anything technically, so that you finish a full test like if it was production. It's quite expensive to build. So many times there's some needs at least to understand, to ask the right things to be done. And of course, we use tools. Otherwise, we won't be able to record incidents, to know progress, and to have written what we have to do. So important to give them enough knowledge, but it's as well to give them enough knowledge for what you need. If I need to swim a kilometer, it takes me, I don't know, half an hour, let's imagine. It's something I can do, and I have knowledge to do this. If they ask me to swim in 15 minutes, then I have to learn more. So you need to give your testers the right tools to get to the level that you need. And especially when you have juniors. You start here, and then you start growing in terms of knowledge. There's not a point in making someone going here and the other one being here, because in the end, this is not going to be the result. So what needs to happen is that you need to grow them at a minimum level that you need for them to perform what they have to perform. And knowledge takes time, so we have to be patient. There are ways, of course, to speed up of your learning. And recently there was a study that people that are examined, that they go through exams, and exams can be many things, they learn faster. So if I give you a book and tell you read this book and learn about it, if you know, you're going to have an exam about it. If you get questions about it, if you ask questions about it, all these are things that help you learning. So you have to create this. People sometimes are afraid of asking, but you have to create this learning environment. And that's the only way you're going to speed up your growth. As well, because nowadays we no longer can know just about a very small, tiny thing. Of course, it's important to be a specialist in something, but look at testing. You have 4 weeks to test when the project starts. When you start testing, you have 2 weeks, and the environment is not working. So we're going to end up with a week and a half. And one part is great, everything works fine. But then we need to move and test other things. We need to shuffle, to do different things. So our skills, to be a bit broad, are important. That's why asking, fostering this learning within the team is something very important. And we're talking here about the technical knowledge, but many times the knowledge that you have about someone on your side that the son is sick, or he's concerned because someone hit the car. So this kind of knowledge, know your colleagues, helps as well a lot in terms of performance and in terms of building a team of junior testers, or what is more common, integrating junior testers in your team as well. So follow-up and control, very important. We cannot just fire and forget, especially with junior people. Even with senior we shouldn't, but with junior is even more important. So we should have different levels of follow-up, and of course we can have small teams of 3 people testing, or teams of 20 or 100, or you know how many people testing, and the levels of control are different. But you always, if possible, should go to one-on-one and team checks as well, and team follow-ups. And this is so important and so critical to ask the right questions. I'll give you a couple of examples. A few years ago I was in a project where I had a junior tester like it is framed here. It's a person that has been already working, they had no industry experience, had no testing experience, but we had to integrate in the team. Why? Because there was no one else. So that was the only thing we could do, is take the ones that you had available, some had experience, others didn't, train them, fly them around to learn, give them as much knowledge, repeat everything, ask them to repeat everything. And one day this person was testing, and we do a check, mid-morning check like we usually do, progress, and the area this person is testing is almost all red. And everything was working the previous days. So we go and check what's happening. It's something very simple. This person is junior, so when you log into this application, you have to get a license. And without a license, you can do 3-4 clicks, but then nothing works. So imagine we let this person run for 3 days. What would have happened? We'd lost 3 days. Should not be happy. Management would not be happy. Colleagues would not be happy. Development would not be happy. So everybody is going to be unhappy on something we could have done 2 days before or 3 days before. So this was a success check. We asked the right question. I'll give you another one. This was not in IT. Totally different environment. And this as well has to do with culture. So this person has a task, 3 days, true story as well. Someone goes and asks, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. Next day, is everything okay? Yeah, everything's fine. You good? Yeah, I'm good. Third day, is the task ready? No, it's not ready. I haven't started since day 1. What happened? I asked you yesterday if everything's okay. Yeah, I'm fine, no problem. I'm not sick, I'm here, I can come to work, everything's fine. So ask the right questions. Be sure people understand. This, of course, was a junior person, afraid to go and tell there was a problem, because none of us likes to talk about things we don't know. And that's how we lost 3 days. We should monitor results as well. So it's great to check if the follow-up is fine, people are really doing what they have to do, they have no doubts, but are they doing it well? Remember the first image that we've seen? Are we doing the right thing? Are we doing the thing right? Are we doing something as well? That's even the question we can have here. So we have to be sure that what we're doing is accurate and we can trust. Of course, it's good to have everything green, but then if it doesn't work, what's the point? So I've seen this happening. I've been in projects where things get green, and then you go and check the tools. Okay, there is no proof that this is working. And then you test, and it doesn't work. So you can even call it a fraud. You don't go to jail, of course, but people are lying, which is not so nice. So what we do usually is peer checks. When you have a good mix between junior people and more senior people, you always tie a junior with a senior, because it helps a lot. Usually the senior knows better the organization, knows the habits, the practices. If you have only juniors, you have to tie them between each other. And that reduces as well the risks and improves the trust. The other thing we do, especially when you move towards the end phases, so more like user acceptance testing, we do what I just called here public sessions. So invite the business to come, and the business is going to validate that everything is fine and that the tests are really going well. So you should be available. That's another important thing when you have these teams of junior people. They need attention. You cannot just let them alone. We're already doing a lot of things. We're teaching them, which is good. We give them peers to check, which is good. We do regular checks, more formal, let's put it that way. Good. If we bring all these things together, we're already much faster, much further than many people are when they run these kind of teams. But as a manager, you should be available. I know time is critical, but your team is your biggest asset. You cannot do anything without them. It will not work. So that's why I have people that have tasks, and that's why you're all going in the same direction, as I mentioned earlier. That's why a team is so important. So when there's a team, people have to work together. They might have different tasks, different roles. We've been talking quite a lot about what we need to build a team internally. So about knowledge, things I can teach them, how do they relate to each other. But the world, the testing team is not a closed box. So there's more than that, right? You have to interact. And you have to connect with other people. And one of the biggest problems we see with junior people is that they don't know. And they are afraid to talk about things they don't know. And it's normal. I don't like to talk about things I don't know. If tomorrow they sit me in a project about aviation and explain me how a plane works in half an hour, and the next day I have to go and ask questions to someone or explain, I'd rather do it in 3 days. I have more time to learn. And if 3 days I have another problem that's easier to fix, I'd rather do it in another 3 days. So, and then do it later. So we just try to postpone the things we're not comfortable with. And many of the things we're not comfortable in an organization, when you arrive to a new organization, you don't know anyone. So what's more difficult? I'm going to talk to you. And by whatever reason, you don't have time for me. So I'll leave and I'm not so happy. Then I go and talk to you. And by whatever reason, you're not in a good day and I don't come with my answer. Then I leave. Then what am I going to do? I'm going to do something else. That might be the most important thing, the most critical thing, but that's what I'm going to do because I'm not getting my answers. So that's why it's important that the manager is there available to help. But that's as well important that we get together with the teams we need to get together. Business, infrastructure, management, development, doesn't matter. We have to make sure that the people know who to talk to, that they have an environment that they can work with, that they can really go and close the topics that they have, that they become able to solve problems. If they don't have all these pieces of knowledge, they're still unable to solve problems. And what we want is that they grow in seniority, that they can really go and solve problems. Then we need to give them structure. So, and the structure doesn't mean that everything is so structured that you cannot do anything else. We talked a bit already about Agile, and here is the same. Agile has a structure. We have a stand-up meeting. We have backlog. We have roles as well in the team. We have teams and teams of Agile. We have large organizations. So I've never been in any place where you go, you say something, and then the team self-decides everything that is happening without any control, any structure, and in the end you have a great piece of software. That doesn't work. So you need to have some structure to be sure that everything goes in the right direction. They have to have a goal in mind, deadlines, progress, level of quality. We're talking about testing, so quality is of course important, doesn't mean 100% correct. Might mean, if you're talking again about aerospatial industry, if you talk about telecoms, of course we're not talking about it. And the structure is going to give focus, it's going to help on the focus, be sure you run towards your goal, and the last one is never give up. So, as I mentioned earlier, I talked to you both, I was not happy, but I should not give up. I should go again, or find another person, or talk to my manager. So this is something you have to tell the people. You're responsible, you're CEO of something. Make sure that something happens. Whatever you need. Of course, you're not going to do bad things or insult people, but you're going to ask for help when you need it. That's very important. Oh, okay. So we have some problems as well along the way. And one of the biggest problems we have in testing, especially when I have junior people, and that's something I don't like as well, is to do the same thing a lot of times. If I'd be recruiting a tester that was not a tester, has never tested, and I tell them, yeah, you know, many times you have to do 20 times the same thing and still doesn't work. I'm sure it's going to be very difficult for me to hire people. So people have to be sure that have to know about this, and you have to help them on how to solve this. And the way to solve this is not to put in the tool, it doesn't work. And then the next time it comes, it doesn't work, be sure you fix it. And then, if you don't fix it next time, I'm never going to test it again. So that's not the way of doing things. But some people do it. I had cases of people telling, yeah, it's already 3 times, someone came and it still doesn't work, he's not doing his job. Have you talked to him? Talk to him? Yeah, have you talked to him? Go and talk to him. Get up. Don't write an email, get up. They are in the other room. Go and sit with them and explain. This is not working. Can you tell me why? What's happening? So, communication. Once again, in this case with development, we can give a lot of examples. With infrastructure, environment is not working. With the business not give you answers that you can complete things. So we now have to repeat many things, and many of the things you don't control. So we're now moving a bit more to external topics. So we're talking about people outside. We know about things we do not control, but we still have to manage, which makes it a bit more difficult, of course, but part of a job. So you should also protect your team, and this as well is quite important in large organizations that get very political, where a rumor can really destroy a lot of work. So everything's going fine and there is one problem and there's a rumor that nothing works. It's quite common because people have different interests. So you should always protect your team. And when you towards the outside, there should be no I. Of course, we're all people, we're all individual, we're all different. But try to protect as much of your team. Try to have it as much protected. Don't forward blame. Don't take all the credit. And once again, give them as much as you can. Praise them, extra training, whatever you need, so that they behave more and more as a team. It's not easy, many times, because as well, people don't know. They are young in terms of communication. They don't know how the organization works. But keep them in a closed communication environment is pretty important. So, road to success. First thing we need, people. Without people, we don't have a team. They are our top asset. We want people to do anything, juniors, seniors, whomever they are. If they are juniors, protect them, help them to be sure they're going to help you. And then I just named 3 of quite important pillars we have here. So, motivation, making sure they are motivated and keen to do the work, that they're not thinking of something different. Focus, and in testing, many times we really need to take difficult decisions. So we test A or B. Maybe it's good to better test A because B only happens in 3 months. But B is so critical, it's so important. If it doesn't work, we'll have, I don't know, a big financial problem in the company, yeah, but that's in 3 months. So this is an easy decision. Many times I have more difficult decisions. We have 2 products, we have to pick which one we're going to test. And when we go live, we can only sell one, and we cannot sell the other. So focus is quite important. And knowledge, very difficult to do any job if you don't know how to do it. So that's it for me. I'll let you with this slide, kind of a summary of certain of the pieces we've seen here. And I think I'm quite okay in terms of time. 2 minutes, then we give 2 minutes more for questions. There's a gentleman there.
Could you please switch to CEO slides? I would discuss CEO.
Which one?
CEO to just to assign CEO
yeah.
for every person. I wanted to ask you, as it's the one, how do you deal with Dunning-Kruger effect? Dunning-Kruger, it's for you. So it's effect if a person is so incompetent that he doesn't understand that he's incompetent at all. So he may make very bad decision at this point of time. So it is not without risk letting him to take responsibility. From my point of view, do you have an opinion on this? Do you educate, for example, about this effect?
Yeah. Well, that's a very general question. I can give 2 or 3 answers on how that can be handled, and it's very difficult to answer without knowing exactly what the person is doing. But of course, you need to control this person. That's the first thing. So the person should not have all the visibility and be put in front of the management to tell whatever he wants. That's something you should avoid. Then we talked about having peer people working together. So if he has a peer, especially if he's a senior peer, this peer is going to help on educating the person. And I believe everybody can learn. It might take longer, might take less time. That's something you have to take into account. But it's the same as you have any team. I might have a team of Messis and Ronaldos, but I have a very bad right defender. So maybe I have to put another person helping that one. So I think first is protection, be sure that the team is not affected. And second, more important or as important, depending of course on the risk, make sure this person grows at a level that you need.
Good.
Thank you for your talk. Can we please switch to the very last slide? So sorry.
That's fine. This is the easy part.
Yeah. So where in this picture you see the culture? So I mean that kind of culture that junior tester should, so if he or she doesn't understand something, so he or she goes to Google and search for it first, or they should go to issue tracker to search if they can find similar problems, or I don't know, to internal incorporate knowledge database. I don't talk about juniors who just started on their first day, but probably juniors on, I don't know, third months, fourth months, when you have a bit higher expectations. So where the culture is and how do you understand it and how you advise to educate it to juniors? Thank you.
Well, someone that has been with us like for 3 months should have a good understanding about the processes that the team runs. And those processes might be how to log an incident, making something very simple. We have to report every day that something's happening. Whenever I see something critical, I talk to my manager, I talk to my peer to validate, and then to my management. So those are processes that within the team you should build. And building does not mean, again, a very strict process. Build means, let's imagine, when I start with this team on day 1, I have 2 meetings a day. Or I go and ask them every 3 hours or 4 hours, I go and talk to each of them. What I start then educating them is, okay, you know how it works. I come here every day. 80% of the days, 90% of the days, there are no problems. So now you learned what is a difficult problem and what's a complex problem. And when this comes, you come to me. So all this is built basically in stages. Have a kid. Teach a kid how to start eating with fork and knife. I'm exaggerating, I'm just making it in a very simple way. First, the kid only uses the fork, and then only uses the knife, and then cannot really cut. After some time, they know how to cut. But if there's no cutlery in the table, they're going to ask, because they know they need both things. So the same here. People start growing in terms of their skills. And what happens after? The processes are the easy part to learn. Most of the time, people learn processes quite fast, because that's something they're used to. The questions come on technical needs, or a scenario that never occurred. That's when you then start having more and more these type of questions.
Can you give some recommendations about the spread teams, for example, when your team is spread over several continents?
Yeah, I can. The most important thing is this. You have to really follow up with them. We work in India in a project some time ago, and we had a lot of problems. When I talk about fraud, nothing, I had good experience with India as well. I don't know if there's any Indian. Nothing personal or cultural, we just had good experience and bad experiences. And what we've done is we start checking at 9 a.m. First, the way we were sold was like, yeah, we arrived 4.5 hours earlier. So when you arrive, you've done a lot of testing. So great sales things. Then we start working with them. Everything goes. And what we see is when we arrive at 9:30 or 9 or 8:30, whatever is the time, nothing is done. So we go, nothing is done, whatever. They do not even log in. First thing that we see. Then we go and see, you have to log in. Okay. Then they log in. Then we see, still nothing is done. Oh, we have to mark things. Okay, that's fine. Then what we see is like 15 minutes before we arrive in the office, and we have the time tracking. Everything is marked to yes. So you're going to go through all these stages, and here is something that should not happen once again. It's an exaggeration. But if you check, if you tell you have to do this at this time, have a process of people what they have to do, you have to keep following up. And if you do your follow-ups, in the end, a distributed team is the same as a local team. Communication is more difficult, but there are tools nowadays. We all have Skype tools. You press a button here, it's already happening in the other side of the world. If people know what they have to do, if you've built a process, simple or complex, if you have your checks that happen the same way, then you see most of the communication that is going to happen is going to have specific points in time, and you're going to have the same thing. More difficult, agree. Communication via screen, different. I cannot go to have a beer with this person in case if there is any stronger attract, agree. More difficult, but after it is working, after the team built, maybe it takes a bit longer to build, but if it is well built, it's going to work the same way.
Thank you for your talk. You have mentioned creating atmosphere of knowledge, where knowledge spreads from one to another. How do I do it?
Okay, I'll tell you the approach usually we take, especially in these very young teams, okay? And actually it was in the last talk, I talked about how to build a team from an empty room, and I'll give you a few steps that we do. So first thing what we do is, of course, they need some group sessions, especially if they don't know anything. And they need group sessions about everything they have to do. So tools, which is something usually simple, with some screenshots, ideally, and then they learn how to do it. You need about how you run your daily process. So what we do is explain how is the day of a tester, how a day of a tester is going to be in this environment. And it's always different because I might have a management team at 10 a.m. and I need information at 8 or in the previous day, or I might have a management team at 5 p.m. and then I need it earlier. Okay, or I might have a meeting with my boss on Wednesday, and on Wednesdays the day is going to be different. So all that process is differs, but basically what you do is typical day of a tester. How does it work? You arrive, you check your bugs, you check how's the status of the tool, you have a look at your work, you talk to your peer, you start working for 2 hours, then we have a meeting with the whole team around whatever 11. I'm the CEO of instant management, so I go and see if there's any instant that is not complete. Whatever, we name it like that. So we define that for everyone, because sometimes we have sub-teams in the team. Then we have to teach them knowledge, and that is where usually is more difficult. So if I have to learn a new process with a new tool, it's something that takes longer. And especially, I worked a lot in the telecom area, for example. So if bring someone that never worked in the telecom area and have to teach them how is the telephone line start to work from the moment someone calls. Says, hey, I want to have a new phone with this plan. And then you put everything, and then how it goes down to all the networks somewhere, up to the phone where it is working, is something complex that takes time, people to learn. So we do this as well. And we repeat sessions. So we repeat some of these sessions. From here, we have them writing test cycles. And this is if it's a brand new team, because that's the most difficult scenario. You arrive, empty room, bring 20 people, different parts of the company or even externals, and you start building them. Then you have them writing test cycles. Ideally, you have support of senior people or business people. They can do a lot of reviews of these test cycles. But if they write, they're already repeating what they learned. So that's the repetition that we talked about. And after this, you can tell they're ready. No. That's when the problem starts, because paperware is easy to build and is easy to tell that's fine. But at least they have some kind of ground. And then some people are going to be fast in certain areas, so they should have their peers. And when you pick the CEOs of something, if there's someone that came already from the company, maybe this person is going to be, you can call it, anything that has to do with connection with the business people, go and talk to him, because he already knows. So you have to see how you have your people there. And then, of course, it's a lot of question and answer. There's going to be a lot of questions and answers, especially in the first days. People wrote, you know how it works, you do 3 clicks, the window is different. What do? question answer, and so on and so forth. So it's important to give them some ground theoretical rules. If they have an environment already they can play with, create an incident. Now you go and create an incident, you just learned. It's easier if it's immediate, of course. The same, install a telephone line or make a deposit in a bank, whatever it is. Go do it immediately, and you have an environment where you can test this easier. Usually don't, because everything's being built if you have a brand new team. Now, if you have a person coming to a team that already exists, it's easier, because usually this person is not going to replace a full, many times it is replacing a full empty chair. But especially if the person is not replacing an empty chair, it's just adding work power. Then you just peer them, and one person is responsible for the other one. If it's an empty chair, you need to go on this process and find skills around you that can really teach this. So it a bit depends, but it's a lot. Give them information, let them practice, and as soon as they really start doing, make sure they really ask all the questions that they have. And as I have written somewhere here, the only good questions are the ones you don't ask. I usually tell that to everyone, because I'd rather have 100 questions and one is useful than had no questions and then we lose a week because this question was not asked.
Okay, it was a last question. Thank you for this presentation.
Thank you.
It's really interesting and important.
And if you have more questions, feel free to come to me. I'll be around.
Thank you.